Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. ISRO prepares for its first launch of 2016, India's fifth regional navigation satellite to be launched at 9:31 a.m. today. Protests escalate across the country over the suicide by Dalit research scholar Rohit Vemula. Noted writer Ashok Vajpayee decides to return D.Litt he received from Hyderabad University in protest. Prime Minister Narendra Modi targets ruling Congress in poll-bound Assam, promises to fast-track development in the state. World Economic Forum opens in Davos, focus on widening wealth gap, climate change and fighting deadly diseases. And India to take on Australia in the fourth one-day international in Canberra. It will be a fight to save India the blushes following a series defeat. Well, let's begin the bulletin with some good news. Now ISRO is all set to make its first rocket launch of the year. The fifth satellite of India Regional Navigation Satellite System, IRNSS-1E, will be launched on board the PSLV C-31 rocket from Sriharikota at 9:31 a.m. today. ISRO says all things are in place and it expects a smooth launch. IRNSS-1E is the fifth navigation satellite in the IRNSS space system, comprising 7 satellites, which would be on par with US-based GPS once the full complement of spacecraft is launched. It has configuration similar to its predecessors IRNSS-1A, 1B, 1C and 1D and carries 2 types of payloads, navigation and ranging payload. It has a lift mass of 1,425 kilograms and carries corner cube retro reflectors for laser ranging and a highly accurate rubidium atomic clock. Moving on now, noted Hindi poet Ashok Vajpayee has returned his D.Litt degree from Hyderabad Central University in protest against the events leading to the suicide of research scholar Rohit Vemula. Vajpayee accused the university of acting under pressure, terming it as intolerance of another kind. Vajpayee was among the first to return his Sahitya Academy Awards a few months ago when acts of intolerance were on the rise in the country. Meanwhile, the death of the Dalit scholar has triggered massive protests countrywide, with political leaders too jumping in, engaging in a bitter war of words.
मैंने सोचा कि मैं इस विश्वविद्यालय ने जो मुझे मानद उपाधि D.Litt की दी है, मैं कम से कम उसको वापस करके उसको एक श्रद्धांजलि तो दे ही सकता हूँ। बस यही मैंने किया। विश्वविद्यालय कोई सहमति के लिए थोड़ी है, ये तो असहमति की और वैचारिक बहुलता की का परिसर है, इसको वैसा रहना चाहिए।
Protests at the University of Hyderabad. Students demanded the resignation of Vice Chancellor over the suicide of research scholar Rohit Vemula. The Dalit community member was expelled from the university along with 4 other students last year and from the hostel a fortnight ago for allegedly attacking another group of students. Vemula's suicide triggered protests by student bodies across India. In Hyderabad, protesters sat outside the university campus and raised slogans demanding action against the authorities.
16th day that the protest is on, and on the 13th day we lost our dear friend Rohit Vemula, and we consider this as an institutional murder, and this institutional murder is unjust.
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi also met the students protesting against the incident. The BJP accused him of politicizing the suicide. The party insisted that the issue had nothing to do with the victim being from the backward community.
There's no question of politicizing it. But what has happened here is some youngsters have felt that they wanted to express certain ideas that they have. And the institution, instead of operating fairly, instead of letting them speak, maybe even saying, we don't agree with you, but you can speak, has used its power to crush them.
राहुल गांधी जी या कांग्रेस पार्टी को ये लगता है कि हर चीज पर वो नकारात्मकता करे और उनकी जो ये नकारात्मक सोच है, यही सबसे ज्यादा कांग्रेस पार्टी को नुकसान कर रही है।
Meanwhile, members of Telangana Jagruti Yuva Morcha staged a demonstration outside the residence of Labour and Employment Minister Bandaru Dattatreya in Hyderabad, demanding justice and his resignation.
What we want is that the VC should be sacked immediately, and besides that we want punishment for all the people who have been accused, and plus we want compensation 50 lakhs for the aggrieved family, for the victim's family.
The minister and university's vice-chancellor were on Monday named in an FIR over the incident. Dattatreya had written to Education Minister Smriti Irani seeking action against anti-social elements who were disrupting peaceful atmosphere within the university. On Monday, the Human Resource Development Ministry formed a 2-member team to look into the suicide case. Section 144 was imposed on the university campus on Tuesday, barring large congregations to avoid any untoward incident. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed students of IIT Guwahati yesterday. He told students that India stands at the threshold of emerging as a manufacturing hub and a global IT superpower. For this, he urged all IITs and other technological institutes to play a key role. He said that the leading institutions have to create an atmosphere for boosting the Make in India campaign. With this, India will not only step in a big way to manufacture defense equipment, but also lead the world in ensuring cybersecurity and supply skilled manpower globally in the next few years.
अपनी सुरक्षा के लिए आजादी के 70 साल के बाद भी औरों पर डिपेंडेंट रहे। अश्रु गैस जो है ना, अश्रु गैस रोने के लिए भी टीयर गैस, वो भी बाहर से लाना पड़ता है। ये स्थिति बदलनी है दोस्तों। हम हमारी रक्षा के लिए जो आवश्यकता है वो तो हम बनाएं, इतना ही नहीं दुनिया को हम सप्लाई भी करें, ये ताकत हमारी होनी चाहिए। ये संकट है, दुनिया डरी हुई है। टेक्नोलॉजी ने जहां जहां पर हमको पहुंचाया है, तो उसके साथ हमारे सामने चुनौतियां भी आई है। क्या हमारे विद्यार्थी, हमारे नौजवान विश्व को साइबर सिक्योरिटी देने के लिए नेतृत्व नहीं कर सकते क्या? अगर दुनिया में किसी को भी साइबर सिक्योरिटी की जरूरत होगी, भारत के नौजवान पर उसको भरोसा करना पड़ेगा, तब जाकर के उसको ये काम होगा। ये नहीं कर सकते क्या?
Earlier, the Prime Minister attacked the Congress at a public rally in election-bound Assam. He blamed the opposition party for lack of development in the state and promised to fast-track development but didn't announce any financial package. Here's more.
15 साल उन्होंने सरकार चलाई, 10 साल यहां से प्रधानमंत्री आए और हिसाब मेरे से मांग रहे हैं। भाई पहले 15 साल का तो हिसाब दो, बाद में 15 महीने का हिसाब मांगो।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi sounding the poll bugle for BJP in Assam. Addressing a public rally in Kokrajhar, Modi came down heavily on the Congress government in Assam and the previous UPA government at the centre for failing to fulfill the aspirations of the people.
क्या नहीं है मेरे भाइयों बहनों, क्या नहीं? इतनी प्राकृतिक संपदा है, पानी का भंडार है। आसाम की स्थिति किसने पैदा की, क्यों पैदा की? और इसलिए आसाम के लोगों के मन में विचार आना बहुत स्वाभाविक है। अब हमें आसाम ऐसे ही रहना देना है कि आगे बढ़ता आसाम चाहिए हमें।
Modi promised to fast-track development in the state. He also announced a slew of initiatives including granting tribal status to the two communities. Modi, however, refrained from announcing any big central packages for Assam or the Bodoland Territorial Areas district.
तेज गति से बढ़ता आसाम चाहिए कि नहीं चाहिए? विकास की नई ऊंचाइयों वाला आसाम चाहिए कि नहीं चाहिए? आसाम ऐसा हो जहां नौजवान को रोजगार हो, ऐसा आसाम चाहिए कि नहीं चाहिए? यहाँ के किसान, यहाँ के मजदूर, इन सब के लिए उज्जवल भविष्य हो, ऐसा आसाम चाहिए।
The PM also addressed a youth rally in Assam. Later, he addressed students at the Indian Institute of Technology in Guwahati. The BJP is expected to announce its first pre-poll alliance in the state with the Bodoland People's Front. The party was an ally of the ruling Congress for 13 years, but they split in 2014. Narendra Modi is on a two-day visit to Northeast. Earlier in the day, he visited an organic products exhibition in Gangtok and Sikkim. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar held a delegation-level meeting with his Maldivian counterpart Adam Sharif yesterday in New Delhi. They discussed ways to deepen security ties between the two countries. The development comes at a time when the Chinese are increasing their footprint in the archipelago nation, a matter of concern for India, which has traditionally had strong ties with Maldives. The cordial relations between the two countries go back to 1965, when India became one of the first countries to recognize its independence, establishing its mission in Malé in 1972. Adam Sharif is on a three-day visit to India, where he will also meet Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Well, 25 young brave hearts will be honoured with the National Bravery Award for this year. Among the winners are some who saved their friends from drowning, some who braved fire to save lives, and others who fought snatchers. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will confer the award to 22 boys and 3 girls at his residence on January 24th. The children will also participate in the Republic Day Parade on January 26th. The awardees will receive a medal, a certificate and a cash prize. The awards were initiated by the Indian Council for Child Welfare in 1957. They recognize children who distinguish themselves by performing outstanding acts of bravery. This year, 2 children have been awarded posthumously.
बच्चों ने जो किया है और ये एक मिसाल है सभी बच्चों के लिए। हर साल ये छोटे हम लोग फंक्शंस करते हैं। मेरा मानना तो ये है कि इसकी ज़्यादा पब्लिसिटी होनी चाहिए, ताकि इन्हीं की उम्र के और बच्चे और इनसे बड़े बच्चे भी ये देखें। 2 बच्चों ने तो अपनी जान गंवाई है, तो ऐसे उदाहरण, ऐसे मिसाल मिलती नहीं है। मेरा अपना ये मानना ये है कि इसकी ज़्यादा पब्लिसिटी होनी चाहिए।
Well, let's take a look now at the news and events lined up for today in our segment, The Day Ahead. Home Minister Rajnath Singh will inaugurate a 2-day international conference on cooperative federalism in New Delhi today. The conference is being hosted by the Ministry of Home Affairs in collaboration with the Forum of Federations, UNDP and the World Bank. This is the first conference in the country where the subject of cooperative federalism is being discussed at the international level. Tamil Nadu Governor K. Rosaya will address the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly today. The session is likely to see opposition parties rake up last year's handling of the flood situation by the ruling AIADMK regime. This will mark the final session of the current state government, which came to power in 2011 as the tenure of the present assembly expires in May this year. The Supreme Court will hear the plea challenging the appointment of the Uttar Pradesh Lokayukta today. This after the Supreme Court declined to defer hearing on Uttar Pradesh's plea due to the non-availability of senior lawyer Kapil Sibal on Tuesday. The case relates to the appointment of Virendra Singh, former judge of the Allahabad High Court, as Lokayukta. The nominations for the by-polls in 12 assembly seats will begin today. By-polls to 12 assembly constituencies in 8 states, including Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Karnataka and Maharashtra, will be held on Feb 13. Well, it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
103rd Science Congress, Venkat Ramakrishnan, he made a telling statement that it looked like a circus.
The media makes a headline out of a non-issue.
RSS affiliate Vigyan Bharati. A lot of scientists are quite uneasy that, these people are the ones who are propelling the science policy.
You go and ask the scientists, you will find that there was not even an iota of intervention from them.
Watch Union Minister Dr. Harshvardhan on To The Point, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, the 46th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum opened today in Davos, Switzerland. The theme of the meeting this year is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Over 2,500 leaders from business, government, international organizations, academia, media and arts will participate in the meet. Here's more.
Politicians and business leaders gathering in the Swiss Alps this week are faced with an unlikely challenge: how to tackle an increasingly divided world. The world's poor have fallen far behind the super rich, and political fissures in the US, Europe and the Middle East run deeper than at any time in decades. Just 62 people own as much wealth as the poorest half of the entire world population, with the wealth gap widening faster than earlier anticipated.
So this year's annual meeting has three main pillars. The first is, of course, the fourth industrial revolution. Also means the merger between the classical industry on the one hand and the digital industry on the other hand. The second pillar is the humanitarian imperative. So how to deal with the situation on the ground, what about social cohesion, and how to support, how to help the many refugees on a global level. And the third pillar is the question of the root causes. What are the reasons for refugees, and what about the diplomatic challenges and even the question of war and peace the global community is facing in some regions?
The focus this year is also on climate change and the fight against deadly diseases.
I believe that we need a moonshot in this country, an absolute national commitment to end cancer as we know it. I'm not naive to think that, as someone suggested, that we're going to have a cure to every cancer in the world, that that's going to come in the near term. That's not what is happening.
The forum opened with an award to Hollywood actor Leonardo DiCaprio. He was one of 4 recipients of the Crystal Awards.
We simply cannot afford to allow the corporate greed of the coal, oil, and gas industries to determine the future of humanity. Those entities with a financial interest in preserving this destructive system have denied and even covered up the evidence of our changing climate. Enough is enough. You know better. The world knows better. History will place the blame for this devastation squarely at their feet.
Meanwhile, in a first-of-its-kind global ranking, the World Economic Forum found that most countries are in fact missing major opportunities to reduce income inequality, and same is the case with India. The country has been ranked very low globally on most of the parameters for inclusive growth and development. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will represent India at Davos. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the British Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, held bilateral talks with Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on Tuesday ahead of the World Economic Forum. The two sides discussed cooperation between both countries at the residence of the British Finance Minister in London. The talks focused on infrastructure and financial services, taking a lead from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's state visit to Britain in November 2015. Arun Jaitley also addressed an investors' summit at the London Stock Exchange and will leave for World Economic Forum in Davos today. Well, an estimated 3,500 people, women and children among them, are believed to be held as slaves in Iraq by Islamic State militants. A UN report reveals that the militants imposed a harsh rule that it marked by gruesome public executions. The UN pointed out that Islamic State has committed widespread abuses that may amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity and possibly genocide. The report also details executions by shooting, beheading, bulldozing, burning alive and throwing people off the top of buildings. The UN also has information about the murder of child soldiers, with 800 and 900 children in Mosul alone being abducted for military and religious training. Meanwhile, a report claims that the terrorist group has decided to cut salaries of its fighters by half, a sign of worsening financial situation of the outfit. Here's a roundup of the other international news in our World Wrap. A suicide bomber blew himself up close to a police checkpoint in northwestern Pakistan, killing at least 10 people and wounding more than 20. The bomber had rammed his motorcycle into the roadside checkpoint. Among the dead were at least 5 police officers, including the line officer whose vehicle was targeted by the bomber, and a journalist. As of now, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Over 100 firefighters dealt with a massive 4-alarm fire at a Center City apartment building in Philadelphia. According to officials, 21 of the building's 22 units were occupied at the time. The building was evacuated and one person was taken to a local hospital. Yasutaro Koida of Japan, officially the world's oldest man, died at the grand age of 112 after suffering chronic heart problems. Koida, who was born on March 13, 1903, died just 2 months short of his 113th birthday. The former tailor from Western Japan credited his longevity to living life with joy. Well, it's time for another breather on the program right now, but sports news on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Life after death was a cardinal belief in the Harappan civilization. Reflecting this is the skeleton of a middle-aged woman with gold bangles. Excavated from Rakhigadi in Haryana, it's an example of the burial practices in those times. Much like the Egyptian mummies, vessels, eatables, ornaments were kept near the dead body, in the hope that they would be of use to the person in the next world.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Mahendra Singh Dhoni's captaincy will once again be in the spotlight as India looks for redemption in the 4th ODI against Australia in Canberra. The skipper will have his hands full and avoiding a whitewash will not be easy, especially with a misfiring bowling attack. India need to win at least one match in the series to keep their ICC World No. 2 ranking intact. Even though the batsmen have impressed so far, India's bowlers have been too erratic. The bowlers failed to defend impressive scores put up by the batsmen in the ODIs in Perth, Brisbane and Melbourne, handing over the 5-match series to Australia on a platter. Ravichandran Ashwin is likely to be back in the squad after Dhoni having made the mistake to sit him out at Melbourne despite a turning pitch there. Youngsters Gurkirat Maan and Manish Pandey will also probably get a look in, with Rishi Dhawan's place in jeopardy after his poor outing in the last match. Meanwhile, on day 3 at the Australian Open, the world's top players are in action in their second-round matches. The world's top women's player, Serena Williams, is playing her second-round match against Su Wei Hsieh on the Rod Laver Arena. Earlier on the same court, Maria Sharapova won her second-round match against Belarus's Alexandra Sasnovich. It was an easy match for the former champion as she won the match 6-2, 6-1. Meanwhile, Roger Federer will be on court after Serena. The men's world number 1, Novak Djokovic, will also play his second-round match later today. India's Mahesh Bhupathi and Leander Paes will also be on court today with their respective partners for their men's doubles first-round matches. Day 2, however, was a day of shock exits at Melbourne. Rafael Nadal, Venus Williams and Simona Halep were knocked out of the tournament. Nadal suffered the only first-round exit of his career at the Australian Open after Fernando Verdasco recorded a stunning 5-set win. Verdasco went on to win 7-6, 4-6, 3-6, 7-6, 6-2. However, British number 1 Andy Murray saw off German teenager Alexander Zverev to reach the second round. In the women's round, Venus Williams also crashed out of the Australian Open in the very first round. The 8th seed lost to British player Johanna Konta 6-4, 6-2. Second seed Simona Halep also suffered a shock defeat The 24-year-old Romanian was beaten 6-4, 6-3 by Chinese qualifier Zhang Shui. Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a good day.